Okay. What I did, just to walk you through this, of course, I have these images already lined up here. We're going to be doing a cleanup on top of these images. So first thing we need to do after we open up this image inside Photoshop is we need to click on the layer and we need to take off the lock. Okay, that's the most important thing. After that, what we're going to do, this is actually pretty easy. What I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop the opacity down on this to a lighter level so I can just see the prop as a real light sketch. Then I can go back on top of it and I can put lines on it and clean it up. One of the downfalls right now is that I don't have another layer underneath this since I had to load it up on the website for you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a layer under here. I'm going to come over. I'm going to take white. Okay, I'm going to fill it really quickly. I was talking to a student about this yesterday. How can I fill my environment really quickly? I have two ways. One, I can hit G. If I happen to be on the gradient tool, I could come over, select, go to the bucket, and I could just touch that layer, fill it full of white. The other way is I can hit Command A for select all. Okay, and I can go under edit and I can go down to fill and I can tell it to fill white as well. But I have to tell it where the color is coming from. I would say foreground color there, which should be this color on the front. Background color stands for the color that's in the back there. Hit OK, and it would fill it full of white. This way, now as I adjust the opacity, I'm not going back to a checkerboard. And it's a lot easier for me to be able to come up there and to work. So real quick, let's talk about some basics about the pen tool. Okay, so with the pen tool, first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I have black set right here. Okay, now if I come in here with the pen tool, and if I just hit P, if you look down here, you'll see the pen tool. And if you come over and you click on the pen tool, you'll notice that you have a couple different options here. Okay, you have a base pen tool, and then you have a freeform pen tool. If I go to the base pen tool right now, and I come across here, and I just take my mouse, and I'm pressing. Okay, now, but I'm not dragging, I'm just pressing. You'll see that I'm basically making straight edges that are just like dedicated lines. Okay. Now, if I go down and if I press and I hold the mouse button and pull it, I create what's called a Bezier curve. Okay, once I get that curve going, that allows me to get in there and then allows me to get some really fine curves to go around certain rounded shapes that could really help me. Now, at the same time, I could come back and then if I have a hard edge, I can just go around a hard edge. And I can come back, hit the mouse button, and I can drag and pull that off. Okay, now, once I finish up here, give me a second here. I've been working on a Mac all week, okay? And I need to go back to my PC. Once I finish up on a PC keyboard, now it's a little different on a Mac because you have a couple different buttons. You have the Mac and the Option button. But on our keyboards, if I hit Control while I'm working here, it'll bring up this white arrow. Okay, that white arrow is my friend because it allows me to go back and select a point that I've been working on, and I can move it and I can adjust it any way that I like. So I could come back over to another point that might have the Bezier curves in it, like right here. And then I could grab one of the tips of the Bezier curve and I can move that along. Okay, I can readjust it. So if you happen to miss something that you didn't like, don't worry about it. It's no problem. There's actually a little bit easier control settings I find using a Mac. Just a little bit more friendly to me. PC is a little stranger because the keyboards tend to be different on PCs depending upon what model of a PC you have. I know these keyboards are pretty standard. They're a Logitech keyboard, but I've seen problems with like Toshiba keyboards versus a Sony keyboard versus Logitech. Okay, all right. Now let's say in the middle of my adjustment here, if I wanted to come back, I move points around. I get my rough line here the way that I like. If I hold down Alt, I could come in here. So if I press Alt, you'll see my pen tool kicks up and I get a little add button that's in there. That allows me to come in and to add another point if I want anywhere into the previous line that I've just made. So that's pretty easy. I'm just using Control, Alt, and Shift while I'm in the pen tool, and it's allowing me to come in here and create a bunch of different variations. Okay, give me 1 second here. I want to open up my path window really fast. So to do that, I don't have it up here on my layers. I'm going to come down to Window. I'm going to come over here to Paths and make sure this pops up. And you'll see, I'm going to go ahead and drag it and drop it. Put it right in here. That way I can click on it when I'm working. What's happened here is I've created this sort of this base, this rough line in here, okay? And it indicates itself as a path, okay? Just like in Photoshop, what I can do is I can create multiple paths and have them ready where I can reload them at any time that I'd like. Okay, not that I have to, but that's where this pen tool can work as a selection option. Is that if I select a certain area, I can always come over and then and I could select whatever I want, and then I could just load it back up in a path. I'll get to that in a second. Back here on the pen tool, I've made this selection right here for a line. I can come over here, I can right click it, and I can tell it to stroke of the path. Okay, I can tell it to use my pencil or my brush, and I can hit OK. And if I do that, hit enter, okay, you'll see that now I have a dedicated line that's flowing through. Okay, however though, you'll notice when I went to stroke that path, I have the option to pick between the pencil or the brush. Okay, let's go back here. Let me show you. So let me make another line here really quick. I'm going to right click on that line. I'm going to come back here, tell it to stroke path. Now you'll notice I have a brush, pencil, I have a couple other options here. Okay, so what does that mean? If I select one of these options in here like the brush tool, that means it's going to be indicative of what my brush was left at. Okay, it's going to be using my brush setting. So what I need to do is I need to come back in here. I can have my path set up, or my little direction that I've created here with my pen tool. I can go back to B real quick, right click on B and find out what are my settings. Well, first of all, I was on black, but I was 20% opacity. So when I told it to stroke that path, it did it at a light gray and it didn't do it at a black. Why? Because my brush was already set at 20%. So now if I come in here and I put this at 100%, that's going to affect the way that it strokes. Also, it's my brush size and the kind of brush that I have is also going to affect the way I stroke a path. Okay, so right now if I come back in here, I'm just going to keep it on my pencil sketch brush, right? Remember how I had the variations of my brush and the brush presets where I could have thick and thin line quality? That can also affect the way that I stroke a path. So what I'm going to do right now, I have my brush selected. I'm going to press P, go back to pen tool. I'm going to right click on this and come up here and tell it to stroke path. Hit OK, and look at what happened. Okay, now I have a solid black line, not a gray line, but the thickness of this changed, but that's also indicative of my brush. So if I come over here, go back to B for brush, look at my line. So if I want to have a much thinner line, what I have to do is come down here, use the bracket keys, thin my brush size, go back to my pen tool, okay, come in here, make another path, right click on it really quick, and go in here and say stroke path, hit OK, and now you'll notice it's a whole lot thinner. Okay, so that's really important for me to sort of establish right now, because my brush tool is going to dictate what my line looks like. Okay, so there's a pros and cons there for me to use, because I can manipulate something. I could put on different brush presets. And then what's cool, after I've already stroked, let's say I wanted to come along and make another interior line to this, I could come across and I could by using control, I can move some of these lines that are already there existing. I can move these around, modify them a little bit more, and then I could come back in and I could stroke along that path if I want again. Okay. All right, so let me delete this really quick. So let's go back and just quickly go over that. I'm going to hit P for the pen tool. I can come along here. I can stroke something that I want. When I'm ready to, I can right click on it. I tell it to stroke the path. Now, when I right click on this, if I tell it to make selection, what it's going to do is it's going to fill a hole right here from end to end, because I'm selecting something completely. Okay, so there are times when I don't want to make a selection, where I just want to go in and I want to put a line going through something. Okay, so what I could do right now, okay, if I come in here, let me deselect here. So let's say I had a line there, okay, and give me a second here. I'm going to create another line here. Now, how did I do that? What I did is really quick. I hit Alt, I touched off the line, and then I go back and then create a new line here. So when I'm ready to finish one line, so if I keep touching on my canvas right now, it's going to keep adding those little points, right? So if I hit Control, get the white arrow, I touch on the canvas, I'm still on the pen tool, and I go back. Now it allows me to come in and throw in another line. Okay, when I'm done, okay, I could click over here, right click, tell it to stroke path, hit brush, hit OK, and see what it did? I stroked multiple lines at one time. Okay, this is a huge incentive for me because I don't have to just do one line at a time. I could go in there, do an outside line, do a prop, then I can come back in and do all the interior lines if I like. Okay, all right, now give me a second here. You'll notice when I was creating these lines right in here, let me create another line in here. You'll notice when I went to right click on this and I tell it to stroke the path, I have a little button down here that's called simulate pressure. If I click this on, what it's going to do is it's going to give me an automatic thick and thin, nice contour line on the path of my pen. So if I hit OK, then I hit enter, it makes my pathway go. See that wonderful line I have? It goes thick to thin. Since I put it on simulate pressure, it's always going to do this. It's always going to go really thin to where it starts. It's going to get thicker in the middle and then come back and get thin again. So if I have an interior line, let's say I had a piece of wood right here. Let me make my piece of wood real fast. Oops. Wait, hold on, let me start over there. Select all, delete. Okay, hold on a minute. That's weird, I told it to delete. There it goes. Photoshop acting up. Okay, I'm going to come in here real quick. I'm going to make what looks like a piece of wood. Okay, voila. That's done. Now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to tell it to stroke. Okay, stroke the path. Take off simulate pressure and hit OK. So I have one thick line. And now I want to come in on that interior and I want to put an interior line for the wood. So then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go ahead and put a little curvy line like so. And what I'm going to do is, I know it's going to go light to dark and light, right? So what I don't want it to do that. I want it to have some other variations. I'm going to put a little bit of a line, and I'm going to hit Control, click off of it, come back, add another line, like so. Okay. I have both lines there. Now I'm going to right click on it, tell it to stroke path. This time put it on simulate pressure, hit OK. Okay, hit enter, and now I have that nice thick and thin line going across it. Okay, so then if I wanted to get in here and I wanted to put some more effects of maybe wood grain or something, what I could do is I could come across here really fast like this. Okay, again, hit Control. When you're ready to make another line, hit Control. Okay. Now, I don't want the fine line of the wood to be the same thickness, right? So real quick, I go to B, I go to brush, I look at the size of my brush. I'm going to go down 2 brackets, so it's a thinner line. I'm going to come back over here, go to P for pen tool, right click. I'm going to tell it to stroke the path there. Oh, you know what? Hold on a minute. It's on subpath because I left that one selected. So what I'm going to do is hit Control. There, now they're all selected. Okay. Right click on this, tell it to stroke path, make sure simulate pressure's on, hit OK. And look at that. Now I have my little enter. Now I have some wood grain that's in there. I could have actually gone down another size or two in the brushes to get it to blend in a little bit more. Okay, so that's a quick and easy way that how I can work and create line cleanup really fast. So here, I'll do it again for you. Go back to P for my pen tool. I come over here, I can select something, some type of line. I don't know, let's say I had a piece of something right here. You'll notice when I grab the pen tool and I go to drag it over where I started, I get that little circle. That circle means I'm closing the hole. So if I click that right here, it closes it up, and then I could come over here, right click on it again, tell it to stroke the path, take off simulate pressure, hit OK. There it is. Now I'm going to go back to brush. I'm going to go down 2 brackets to a thinner brush, go back to pen tool, come in here, put an interior line, I'm going to put another interior line, put another one, okay, and then I'm going to right click on these. I'm going to come down here, tell it to stroke path, put it on simulate pressure, hit OK, and I put a much thinner line in there, okay, and so that's how I do my line cleanup. All right, now let's say I just wanted to show you guys this really quick. Let me select all. I'm going to delete everything that's up here. Let's say I was working on an image and I wanted to go into my image and I wanted to have a bunch of selections in there, okay. That's the benefit of having the path, is that I can create a new work path every time. So if I come in here, watch what happens when I go to the pen tool and I select part of a drawing, let's say. Let's say I need to have that selected. See what happened to my path? it created that in my little path outline. So watch, I'm going to add another path by going down to that layer button that you use. I'm just adding another layer in the path selection. If I hit that, okay, create another one right here, then come back to the pen tool, make a different shape. See that? Okay, I'm going to come back in here. Let's say I'm working on another part of my painting, and I'm always going to want to pull up this selection right here as well. And now I have 3 different paths that have different selections in them from the pen tool. I can right click on any one of these paths and just say make selection. Okay, hit OK, and look at that. It's selected for me. So it saves me a ton of time if I'm working on something that I know I'm going to have to go back into at a later point and I have to paint over and over and over. I can quickly come in and I could just create a path for it. Okay, and then I could load that path every time as a selection. Then I could come in here now with my brush and I could paint something. So let's say I was painting there, and then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Now I'm going to paint a little bit lighter. And then say, you know, I want to load my other path. I could click over on that path. I can right click on it, tell it to make selection, hit OK, and now it's selected here, and then I can paint back there. And let's say I'm painting again a little bit later, and I wanted to load another path. I can click on the other path, right click on it, tell it make selection, hit OK, and then I've loaded that in there as well. Okay, so that's how the pen tool can be really friendly to use as a device for selecting, especially if you have something really detailed that you have to come back into, like a texture, somebody's hair, something that's really important. You can go along and select a whole bunch of it, and then it saves it automatically as a work path, but you have to generate that as a path. And you have to be careful. If you're on that path and you hit delete, that path is gone. Okay, so it's really easy to delete it. You could have something selected, and once that path is touched and you hit delete, you've just told it to get rid of the path. And then that selection is gone. You'd have to reselect it to get it back. Okay, all right, so I just wanted to cover a little bit about how the paths tie in. When you're doing this cleanup, you don't have to use paths whatsoever. You're just going to go into a rough drawing, okay, here on your layers. So here, let me delete everything on my layer. I have these 3 items that I want you guys to clean up here. So when you open this up, they're going to be much richer like this. You need to come in here, drop the opacity down, okay, get it nice and light, and then come up here on another layer, okay. You can even go back to this, put a lock on it so you don't accidentally clean up on that. Go on to another layer, and then come in here. Look at my brush. My brush is way too thick. So what happens if I came in here and I started going along the edge here? What I tend to do for cleanups is I do the outside line first, and then I come in and I do the interior lines. Okay? Now I have a line right there. I right click on it really quick. I tell it to stroke path. What's going to happen? Whoa! How'd that happen? Because my brush is huge and my brush is on an opacity setting. So I Command Z. I don't have to lose my line I selected. I'll go back to brush real quick. I click 0 to put it at 100% opacity. I lower the thickness of my brush down to a smaller size. I come back here. I right click on it. Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot. Didn't hit P first. My bad. Jumping back and forth too fast and talking. Hit P. Go back to pen tool. Right click on this. Tilt to stroke path. Hit OK. Voila. I stroked a line. If that's too thick of a line and I don't want that quality of a line, I can Command Z real quick, go back to brush, drop it down another size or 2, go back to pen tool by hitting P, right click on it, come back over and tell it again, stroke path. Okay, hit OK, voila. Now I have a line cleanup around there. And then next, now I just come over here, hit enter, come back over here, say I'm going to do this interior line right in here. Get that the way that I want it. Right click on it. Now my interior lines I want to be thinner. There's sort of a natural rule with that. You don't want them to be bold as your exterior lines. Okay, you want them to be a lot thinner. It makes a lot more sense. When you have too many bold lines next to each other, it flattens out an object. So the interior lines always have to be thinner. So I'm going to come in here really quickly, go back to brush, I'm going to lower down my bracket size a little bit smaller, come back to pen tool, hit the hotkey, come back over here, tell it to stroke path, hit OK. Hit enter. There's my interior line. Okay? So here are 3 props. While I'm not here tomorrow, I want you guys to be working on this. Go in there. You can, once you get used to this and you start to selecting and you just right click, you fill it. You just stroke the path. It's really easy. You just get in this mode of cleaning up. And again, this is great practice because anything that you're doing as a drawing, okay, you're going to have to clean up, and some point or other you're going to start using this tool. It's a great tool for selection, and it's a great tool for cleanup. Okay, so let me go ahead. I'm going to end this lecture right here, and then I'm going to render it for you guys. Okay, any questions about this before I finish it up? Okay, it's pretty basic. Okay, all right. Just make sure you always have that your rough layer separated, because then when you come back and look at your line, you can see the difference. I mean, you can get in there, put all kinds of detail. Don't forget about simulate pressure. That can get you some nice and thick and thin curved lines on props. And yes, I've had students ask me, let's say you put a bold line like this and there's part of your line that you don't like. You can always come back in later. You can go to that layer. You can go to your lasso, get the straight edge lasso tool. You could come in here like this. Hold on a second. There it is. And you could select. I've done this all the time. You can select part of that line if you want to thicken thin it, and you can delete it. Okay? Deselect. See that? I could come in. I could even take some of the line and practically take it out. So you can even modify part of your line in there if you like. Deselect. Okay? So that way you can get some thick and thin and broken edge lines inside your piece. Okay? All right, so I'm going to end it right there.